This is the Missouri Constitutional Action Brief. I'm Aune. My wife and co-leader Angela is here on my far left, and we're joined by Lisa Pannett. So the Missouri Constitutional Action Network is part of a nationwide initiative started by Daniel Horowitz and the Conservative Review podcast from Blaze Media. And our mission is to restore constitutional governance and society to Missouri by being active in our local communities and in the state. Now, this video is an urgent call to action to every constitutional patriotic Missourian. It's also our first video. So we'll have three main sections. First, we're going to talk about SB 51, why we need to stop it and how it's being pushed on Missourians, and step-by-step instructions to follow now. We ask you to at least watch the first section and then take action. You can watch the rest of the video after you exercise your civic rights and duty. And second, we're going to learn a little bit more about Lisa and the work she's tirelessly pursuing at the state capitol and the upcoming town hall. And then finally, we'll tell you a little bit more about the Con Action Network and our Liberty Strike Force teams in Missouri. All right, now before we begin though, we want to thank Jason Dames and his company, Radiance Videography, for generously donating his time, talent, and treasure to produce this video. We're in his studio. He's a member of our team. And if you need any videography for a special event or to promote your business, he's your man. You can go to his website at radiancevideography.com. That's radiancevideography.com to learn more. And make sure you tell him you saw this video. Thank you, Jason. We are very grateful to you. All right, so let's get started. Lisa, let's begin. Well, let's begin with a brief outline of who you are, your work, just why this matters to Missourians. How did you get into doing what you're doing? And tell us what you're doing.
So I guess you would say I'm an activist. I say that my primary focus is to maintain our republic. That's my focus. How I got started was a Jesus story.
Okay.
And I was just in a house of prayer. I used to do different missions over in East St. Louis and ministry over there. And I just felt that the Lord was calling me into a different direction. And I was supposed to be doing politics. And so I said, Lord, here I am. I'm a willing participant and to do whatever you want, to be your hands and feet. But you're going to have to show me what that means, because I did not know who my representative was or my senator or anything about politics other than the history courses that we had. So from there, he just opened the doors, and it's been a wild ride. Now I'm an expert in a lot of things. I don't know how I became experts at them other than other people taught me along the way. Their little piece of expertise, and I learned, and so now I'm an activist at the Capitol. I help people with their campaigns. I help senators and representatives with their bills. I write amendments, and I participate in the process.
Okay. I want to go further, but was it literally like you walked into the state capitol and you're like, hi, I'm here to help?
No, not quite. The first thing that I did was I went on something that was more familiar to me. The Lord brought into my path within that first week someone that was going to DC that was more in prophetic ministry. So we went and traveled to Anacostia, which is the East St. Louis of DC. And I said, I can do this. I understand how to do this. Go and pray in Anacostia. So that was the first door that opened. And from there were other people that just came in my path, and they said, this is what you need to do. If the Lord's calling you in government, you need to go here and do this. And it was just really one by one like that the Lord brought people into my path, and I just learned from them and just really took off.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
All right, we can go further into that later. But let's go to SB 51, HB 1064. Give us the summary. How did we get to where it is now? What is it? Just explain that.
Okay, so SB 51 is best explained as a solution looking for a problem. The governor is very passionate in this. I think he's well-intended. and what he wants to do. Sometimes when we have a governor or even a senator or a representative, they're told talking points on what something is and what it isn't. They don't necessarily know the details, and the devil is in the details. Mm-hmm. So with SB 51, it has been marketed as a COVID liability, and we're going to get all the businesses back so that they feel free to open their doors and have their customers back, and the employees not mask, and all the things that we all desire.
Get the economy rolling again.
You got it. Okay, so this is what it's been marketed. I think we all agree with that. We all want that. Unfortunately, that's a false narrative. They have brought this to say that we don't want the company sued, and so we want to limit their liability. Right now, if you go and look at the lawsuits in Missouri, there are not COVID-19 lawsuits against the businesses and the employers. That's not happening. What is happening there are lawsuits out there, like with you and I being the plaintiffs suing the insurance companies for the gap interruption insurance that they were supposed to be receiving because of the shutdowns. And the insurance companies, unfortunately, are not paying them. And so they're not abiding by their part of the contract. So normal people like you and I that would have businesses, they're suing and saying you need to cover.
Because they bought gap insurance. They bought insurance to cover if they're not able to do business.
Yes.
That's what they had it for.
Yes.
And the insurance companies aren't providing.
Absolutely. So that's more of the reality, that what we're seeing is that you and I, the normal people, are actually suing. Now, what SB 51 really does is it has different categories. So the one category is if you manufacture or distribute or sell or market any COVID-19 product, you are going to be exempt from liability, period, the end. So if you were a manufacturer of a vaccine, let's say, they're already covered federally anyway. You know, you would have to go to a vaccine court in order to get a payout for that, and it's really our money at the end of the day. But not as a business. So if you want to use the business as your gatekeepers to the freedom, and you want to say that in order to come into my business, you must wear a mask, but then the next step would be you must be vaccinated. So we're hearing about these vaccine passports, right? So if you want to require the business to do that, you need to make sure that they're going to be exempt from liability. So what they've done in SB 51 is raise the standard to negligence, that you're not going to be able to sue your employer if they force you to vaccinate, have a passport, get in a social credit China system, whatever comes next that they think of. You won't be able to sue your employer if there's harm from that, because in SB 51, it says that they have little caveats in there. So you're not held liable unless the risk outweighs the benefit. They never define risk and they never define benefit in the bill.
Okay, so I looked at the bill. And it's what, 2-3 pages of definitions. I think that's typical, right up front.
Yes.
But there's nothing in there about what's considered risk or a level of risk.
Got it.
Okay.
And so defining that is key. So when we went through SB 51, we actually went through a filibuster. And what we kept trying to negotiate in is, if you're not going to use this as a weapon towards the people, one sentence will clarify this. So we need one sentence on the front side of this bill that says compliance or non-compliance of guidelines, health department guidelines, either from the CDC, federal or state or local, shall not constitute willful misconduct or recklessness. Shall not.
Okay, so explain that. Explain how that would change the bill.
Okay, so right now what it says is the risk would have to outweigh the benefit.
Right.
So if the risk, who's going to define that? They don't define it. So if the CDC is the one that gets to define the risk, I think we've all seen who gets to define the risk, and it's not you and I. It's another entity. It's either a federal, CDC, local, state, some other entity other than you and I are going to get to decide that. So if they get to decide those terms, then what they're going to say is you must mandate this of your employees. Well, why would the business do that? Well, because they're told and also to hold your business license. So that's what we saw with the restaurants. The restaurants that chose to say, no, we're not going to do this, we're going to open back up because we feel that we have constitutional rights and you're now violating them. Okay, so with the restaurants, what happened is they were willing to buck the system. The problem came in when they decided, okay, we're going to go ahead and keep our doors open, that St. Louis County came in with the health department.
This happened in St. Louis County. Back up. This was, this has been about 6 months?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. That
And I remember we were hearing about that, and it was a big thing just happening throughout multiple restaurants.
Yes. There were many, but one in particular really stood out front and took the heat for that, and was willing to. But they said, we're going to take away your business license, we're going to take away your liquor license, we're going to they threatened him with imprisonment, with fines, barring the doors, you name it. So even though they felt like their rights were being violated, it really didn't leave us with any other options. I mean, we can't all leave work to go stand with our friends and neighbors like that. I mean, it's just not realistic. So with SB 51, what they're trying to do is use those businesses that we're all going to want to go into. We're going to want to go to our grocery store. We're obviously going to want to be employed. And so if they have a way to say, no, because the risk of harm with a vaccine is minimal compared to the benefit of the vaccine. So yes, there may be risk with the vaccine, but it's minimal. And the risk of contact tracing, right, versus the benefit, what is that going to be? What about when they want to implement now on the regular some type of social credit system? The risk outweighs the benefit. If we take away the liability for the businesses in that manner, in one way, we're saying you're not going to be liable unless. It's hinging even for them on doing what that unless is. And without it being defined, we're in trouble. So with that whole part that we tried to add to SB 51 regarding compliance or non-compliance to those guidelines, we said if you don't plan to weaponize it, then just put in that clarity there and we'll all be happy with that.
Okay, so I guess to simplify this, let's say I don't know anything about what you're talking about, just heard about, just happened across this video or someone emailed it to me. If this bill passes, what happens to your everyday Missourian? What liabilities are they now taking on? What happens to business owners?
Well, I have a little question first. Okay, so back to the statement that you want to add, whether you comply or don't comply. Doesn't that make the whole thing moot then? Like, why even do it? Because it really doesn't matter if you comply or you don't comply.
Well, yeah, because that's what they're saying. They don't want the businesses to be liable. And I think we're all fine with that, because if you look at historically what has happened, we didn't do this with the flu. I mean, you didn't have masses of people that sued businesses or employers for the flu, or I say tuberculosis. You want to look at tuberculosis, you know how we've been infiltrated really with tuberculosis, and we haven't done any such measures legally to go around and legislate something to take away the immunity. And what people aren't grasping here is there's a check and balance with the court system. They're always meant to be. So even though there's frivolous lawsuits, we have to understand that that system is in place for a check and a balance for you and I. Because if you take away our ability to take things to court, what have you done? What recourse do people really have? So we have to understand the function of the courts in our system as the ability for you and I to push back. And also the state government maintains their ability to sue you and I in SB 51. They made that very clear, that they get to keep their ability, but we cannot sue them.
So they could sue an individual, they could sue a business? Both. So the government, the state retains their right, retains the ability to sue an individual or a business, but we can't.
That's right. That's
so
exactly right.
If my employer were to say, you have to get the vaccine to keep your job, I'd have no recourse.
Well, you might have a recourse through the vaccine courts if you had an adverse reaction, but not for the businesses. So there would be criminal that you could potentially go after them in the criminal courts, because that doesn't touch on the criminality of it here. it touches on the civil.
Okay.
So if you can go after them civilly, yeah, I mean, you're going to be out of luck because it's dealing with COVID-19, and they changed the definition of COVID-19 in this bill. So it's no longer whenever you read COVID-19 in the bill, as you saw the pages of definition.
So yeah, talk about that.
Yeah.
Something you said earlier, you said the devil is in the details. And you also told us in the details are in the legal language.
Yes.
So explain the legal language and what those details are.
Okay. So COVID-19, however you define a word in a bill is what it becomes. And so what you and I normally think of COVID-19 is this COVID-19 and not COVID-20 or some other disease that mutates out of it. They defined it in this language that any disease or any mutation therefrom of COVID-19. So you're opening up Pandora's box to almost anything and everything at this point. If you go to talk to a physician about COVID, not 19, but COVID, they'd say, we used to put that on charts for years. We've been putting that on the charts for years. So this thing is going to continue beyond you and I.
Right,
Our
coronavirus is nothing new. Right?
No.
This is just another, okay.
Yeah, and you mentioned something a little bit ago. We've never done any of this stuff for the flu or anything else. When all this came out last year, I wrote a letter to our representatives, and I told them I bred and trained horses for years and years, and I don't understand why we're going the direction we're going with this, because what the laws came down to with horses is we just posted a sign that said any activities that, you're undertaking all liability if you engage in this activity.
Yes.
Now, why can't we do that? That's what I was asking them. Why can't the businesses post those signs on all their doors? It's as simple as that. If you choose to come in here, you're taking all liability on yourself. We're not responsible. We know at this point, all the statistics show that this is not what it's being said that it is.
Yeah.
So that seems a simple route. Has anyone asked why they're not doing that?
Yes. So it is a simple route. I asked the same question because I know many churches that are doing just that. You sign a liability waiver when you come into the church. I said I actually had an instance with my daughter at the hospital, and we had to do a procedure during COVID-19. They had a very simple one-page document that says we're not going to be liable for anything regarding COVID-19. It was very straightforward, the most simple document I think I've ever signed. And I was happy to sign that for them. If we want solutions, they are extremely simple. I don't think if businesses and individuals understood what 51 was and not the marketing that is going on, they would never, ever get behind it. And so you see groups like the Chamber of Commerce that have gotten behind this and saying, we want this. But that is because the bill of goods that they were sold on what it is and how it protects. When we talk about, here are the pitfalls of this bill, and they don't deny that those pitfalls exist. And we say, you're not doing your participants any favors by not telling them the pitfalls of this bill, that they're going to have to comply. Because most of Missouri right now, if you go to other places that aren't the big cities, you're going to see that they are living relatively free.
Right.
They don't want to go back to that tyranny. And SB 51 very well can put you back into tyranny. Can I say it absolutely? No, I couldn't say it absolutely, because we have to see how they use SB 51, right? So it can be used as a weapon. Could I say it definitively? Could I say that it's going to mandate them to do this? No, I couldn't say that. But that isn't how they've worked anything else with COVID-19 up to this point. Right. They've done it this way.
Okay, so say you're sitting down, let's say you're just sitting down with a couple you just met. Maybe he works construction, she has a small home-based business,
Yes.
Online business. Real brief, explain what this is so they understand.
Okay.
And what do they need to do?
So what it is it potentially is going to, again, not in the bill, but how they can use it is to force your business to vaccinate, to cause your customers to vaccinate, to carry a passport, to start a China credit system. We really don't know because it's that open-ended. That is just one facet of the bill that the business owners should be concerned about. There are other facets of this bill that are equally disturbing, and that we can go into all that, but that is the hospital portion, because if I was sitting here talking to you about Obamacare, we'd all say that's a horrible idea, right? Well, in this bill, it says that they can omit care even by not staffing, and they are not held liable during COVID-19. Anything that arises out of COVID-19. So you have to look at those words, arising from. We have a lawsuit right now where a doctor that actually did a procedure on the wrong side of the spine in the wrong spot. Okay, that is negligence, that is malpractice. His defense right now is this has arose out of COVID-19, and therefore we're not liable. We are talking about a new standard of care where if the hospitals are given free rein, they will not have to provide services for you and I, even if you come in with a heart attack or anything else, because they couldn't be staffed properly. We are talking about a whole reimagining of healthcare in this bill. So there's two huge portions here.
So as I think about that, I could potentially go in, they find out, for example, I don't have insurance, and they could deny me care and blame COVID-19 and not be liable.
Anything arising out of. So there's really no stopping that. Now, I don't know if you followed what happened with Cuomo in New York, okay, where he put the infected people into the nursing homes, right? Because this would also pertain to the nursing homes as well. So what he did there, he said they're not going to be liable at all. We didn't say you're not going to be liable at all. We raised the standard of being liable to a place that is unobtainable. That's what we did. And so in 51, in order to be liable, like say for what happened in the nursing homes or whatever, and like with Como, you would have to have a doctor telling on another doctor. This would be, this would be suicide for your career.
Right.
I mean, this is not something a doctor is going to do, is tell on another doctor. I mean, even right now. So they raised the standard to an unobtainable standard. And so you would have to have a doctor telling on another doctor. And so that's just not going to happen.
So the only way they'd be liable is if another doctor were to report,
On
which
another
is
doctor.
obviously not likely.
Yeah. Or the courts say the judge looked at it and for some reason he gave it a second look that's actually acting outside of his realm, like not acting like a judge at that point, but a lawmaker, which we do see. And so you can't ever rule that out. So I do say that, but
So there are so many ways that this bill could be, like you said, weaponized
yes,
by the state, or it could be even, in a sense, not so much weaponized, but used as an excuse.
yes,
Well, we saw all year long how COVID-19 was used as an excuse for everything.
definitely.
Right.
So I can see it playing out very easily.
Okay, so what do we need to do?
So what we need to do now is the bill has already made it through the Senate and passed the Senate. It has made it now through the process in the House where it's in a rules committee. What that means is it's gone through a regular committee, it is passed, it's now in a secondary committee called rules, and we killed it in rules. The problem, that sounds great, but they can resurrect bad bills and bad government, and they find a way to do that.
Tell us more about that.
Okay, so they have a way that what they can do in this committee is if you are on the majority opposing side, they can bring a bill back up in committee. So the chairman had voted yes on the bill, but then when he saw that it was defeated, he changed his yes vote to a no vote. That allows him the ability to bring that back up. So what they'll try to do is work on the other members to get the votes that they need
it was
to pass
purely
it.
a political move, just a matter of the order,
Yes.
how it works. I'm thinking of Robert's Rules of Order,
Yeah.
but he just switched his vote just to have the ability to bring it back up.
Yes, so that's what he did. Also, the speaker has some tools in his toolbox. We don't know that he's going to use them for this. Time will just have to play out to see. But he does have the ability to take people and remove them from that committee to get the votes that he wants, or he could add people that are, supportive of his position. He can add them to that committee as well, and to get what he wants. So we need the citizens to be calling the members on that rules committee. They need to be calling them right now to say, we do not want SB 51.
And when you say right now, you mean Monday.
I mean Monday, and I also will tell you this, if you would happen to call and they only get so many voicemails and then their voicemail system is full. If you run into that system, please set a reminder for yourself and call them a little later so that your voice is heard. We need those voices to be heard, and they are heard. But if the voicemails are full, what we have a tendency of people that do is then they just forget and it falls through the cracks.
So we need to make phone calls. If I've never made a phone call to a legislator, I don't know what to say. I don't know what it's going to be like. Who's going to answer the phone if they answer the phone? What do I need to say without giving me exact words?
Okay.
But let me put it this way. How do I come across in such a way that it's compelling enough that they're going to hear it and be impressed by what I say? Is it tonality? Are there keywords? How do I make that impression so that my call is effective?
I think the greatest impression that you can make is being a normal citizen. And that sounds so simplistic, but it's so true. So when I call and I say, you know what, this is Andre, and this is where I live in the state, and I heard what's going on with SB 51, and I'm a Republican. And I care. I care about what goes on in our state. And I care that this has unintended consequences for us. Please don't do this to us as a business. I understand that you don't see it that way, but we see it that way. And we don't want it to be weaponized against us. So I think just a simple message that comes from your heart on why you would not want these guidelines imposed upon you. Why is that? Give them a personal story. If you have a personal story to tell, to say, look, I'm a business owner and I see people that I believe have medical needs that are wanting to come in, and I don't want to force them to wear a mask, or I don't want to force vaccinate kids that may have issues even with a vaccination. Whatever that personal story is, everyone has one. Everyone does. So just let it come from the heart and speak from the heart, and that'll mean more to them than anything, than any script that they could ever get.
So that explains phone calls. If I make a phone call, do I also email?
Yes, both.
And you had not specific items, but you said don't use a stock email. Don't use a script on an email.
No.
And I've seen that a lot, right? Just tell us your name and your address and we'll send it for you.
Yes.
What's wrong with that? And again, how do I write that email?
Okay. So if you do that, they'll just disregard it. So you're really just wasting your time. So don't even bother. When they see all those form emails come in, they say, this is one person that organized something. Other people are signing off on it. They don't really care. What you would say in that email, once again, is you're just putting, yourself in front of the computer and you're just typing something up to say, this is why I care. You're just acknowledging why you care. I think we have points with SB 51 that we can share with people, and they can take those different points and implement them into the conversation that they would want to have with their senator or representative. That's what's so important. Right now it would be a representative, but just have those discussions. Have it from the heart. Have it be real. They want to hear from real people. They don't want to hear from lobbying groups. They really don't.
All right. So we're going to put all this on showmeaction.net. We're going to stop here in a minute, but Angela, any thoughts,
Well,
questions?
yeah, so people are so fed up with all of the mandates that a lot of them are thinking, yeah, but if they just pass this, it'll be over. I don't think they know we'd be going deeper into it.
Yeah.
And that's what they really need to understand. This is not your ticket back to freedom. This is your ticket to more slavery.
It doesn't end it, it prolongs it.
Right.
Yes.
And I know everyone wants to stop this, but this isn't the way to stop it. We need to get back to we can govern ourselves without people telling us what to do. And we've done a good job of that, showing that over time. So, I hope that people will, really take this action and know that this is a really bad way to go. Won't have the result that we want.
I not only agree with you, I think they're almost waiting for that. We're kind of hinging in the balance right now on where they want to go with these mandating of the vaccines and even potentially doing a passport. We're hinging in this balance because of 51. They need that piece to say, we're going to tell you what to do, and then they're going to come to the business owners and say, you have to do this or you're going to be held liable.
So SB 51's almost a stepping stone to the COVID passports.
It is.
That's what we're
Yes.
talking about.
And to putting many more businesses out of business. Another step towards the globalism.
So anything else we need to say specifically on taking action? Anything we didn't?
No, I mean, I'd say call your own personal representatives, call your senators. There's also another resource that I can give you as well. We have on the record mo.com, and we're just trying to update people on how they can even participate some more in this process on where to go with the details.
On the record mo.com. Okay, we're going to put all the details, instructions to contact the committee members, your state senator and representative. All right, so thanks for watching. You've now seen and heard what needs to get done, your phone calls, your emails. Go to showmeaction.net. All the instructions are there step by step. We've made it as simple as possible. You follow the form, make those calls, make those emails, tell your friends, and refer them back so that they can do the same thing. And at the bottom, we ask you to just let us know that you did that so we can track and let Daniel Horowitz know here's what we're achieving in Missouri. And that's great for you to know too. Yes. We'll let Lisa know what's happening and that we are notifying the committee and the legislators. So go there, fill out that form, and you'll have an option. If you want to hear more from us, you can do that as well. Thank you so much. Go do that. Stop the video. Go now.